Around 8.
You are perfectly. Yes, good time. Lynn Robio, Wagner, County.
Jeff Baker, Arapahoe County Commission.
Nicole's on her way, but she's waiting for roadside assistance to be her collected fire.
Oh, no, and she sent a picture of his documents. Oh, does she need one of us to come get her? Ask her if she needs a ride. We'll send somebody. Okay, so Nicole will be here, Craig member, but we're still on the hunt for permanent space because the schools have been really difficult to work with in terms of reliability. And so in any case, I guess after the meeting, we'll take some feedback. It's a nice space, it's a little small, probably. But okay, so in terms of this evening, you all may remember from the last CAG meeting that the CAG members at the end of the meeting really emphasized that there's a real interest right now in underground infrastructure, in the potential of like utilities infrastructure, especially, and wanted to hear from the city of Aurora about what's there and what's the plan with respect to the Lowry vicinity, the concern about potential leachate. And so Sean and Karen were asked and have generously agreed to come and just talk in an informal sort of way about what's there. I see Sean has brought maps, respond to questions, and city and Arapahoe County. Also, a little heads up that there may be questions, similar questions for Arapahoe County, not only in terms of what's there, but in terms of local land use controls, water use controls, and how those relate to the site. And so I think EPA is prepared to talk in particular, but also just an update about the EPA records. So that'll be shorter. And then starting us off, and I think maps are going around. We need to say anything about what's going around right now. I want to take
I will
one.
be talking about it.
Okay, so this is for Sean's presentation. Take one. In addition, starting us off is really going to be an update. I think Rebecca and Les and Jennifer will give an update. Usual, we check in about what you all want to see for next time. So be thinking about what conversations from today need follow-up, what need more in-depth discussion. And also, my sense is, and this is sort of an aside, that we may be at a point, we're at a point where lots going on, a lot's happening with respect to this site. My sense is that the CAG is about to get a technical advisor, which we'll hear about, talk about tonight. There may be new ways that we want to do CAG meetings, new ways that we want to communicate between CAG meetings, like with co-chairs. So just a heads up that the CAG is working for CAG can adjust to the needs of the site, and then we'll just adapt. Good. So I think what I would like to do is turn it over to Rebecca and EPA to give updates about the site.
Thanks, Ryan. I'd be happy to get started out. I'm EPA's management representative, working along with Les, EPA lead project, continuing to work with Tri. I think. So with the first Wednesday of every month, that group will be getting together to talk through about how to address those issues in the 5-year review. So I think that will be very helpful. In addition to that, EPA and CDPHE are meeting twice a month for a couple of hours, again, working on those same issues. So just wanted to give you all a little bit of a look on how much effort the agencies and work settling defendants are really putting towards this project. And of course, it's important to us in part because, the last 5-year review, we were not able to make a protectiveness determination about the landfill. So that's very important. And I think the two key questions there are vertical delineation of the plume. I think we all have a pretty good idea of what the shallow aquifers and shallow groundwater quality looks like. But I think we also all recognize that there's a weakness in our understanding of vertical extent of that plume, what might be happening in deeper groundwater, and how might that deeper groundwater be impacting areas beyond the boundary of the landfill property. So those are questions that we continue to work on. And of course, part of that is our interest in answering the question about what exposures there might be to people that have wells outside of the Superfund site boundary. Yes, ma'am.
Just a question about meetings.
That's okay. I barely made it here myself.
Yes.
Steering committee, I've heard about this thing that I plan to attend or know anything about. So does anybody else know anything about steering committee that they can help me out here?
Yeah, the steering committee has been, the city, the county, Tri-County Health Department, EPA, and state, and we just haven't had a meeting really since the 5-year review. So we've been trying to convene a meeting and haven't been able to directly work that out, and then we're working on the technical issues in response to the 5-year review, so we've been waiting. But yes.
I would just like to ask if would you be able to share the purpose of those meetings? Because I have not been to a meeting either. I know that they have been historically, but I don't really understand the goals.
Yeah, we have a mission statement really to work with all the agencies and have a common mission to have a protective site and to work on land use issues and planning issues and share information and take. And that is really the mission of the steering committee. They have been going on for, I wasn't prepared with dates or anything, but almost 10 years, I think we've been having steering committee meetings. So.
My understanding, developers attend those.
They can, and they are invited. In other land use, we have had the Ridgeview Academy School that is on the east side of the site that is conservation district that has the property across from the landfill. They've attended in the past. So it's properties close to the landfill. We have worked with the county on making comments and language to be incorporated into land use for Copperleaf and all of their different segments for build out. So that's work that most of the agencies already do. And so the steering committee is a method for us to do that, and then let the EPA and the state understand what we're doing locally, and then the EPA and the state feed into information of what they're doing.
So, as far as land use is concerned, and you mentioned making modifications or whatever, does this information get passed along to Aurora City Council or Arapahoe County Commission?
Arapahoe County?
Vote on?
No, Arapahoe County and City of Aurora actually forward land use cases to us to make comments on. That is part of the way the system works, and I don't know if you guys are talking land
It's
use
not just
tonight.
for this, though,
but
it's for
it's-
anything that
Yes.
there's an adjacent boundary.
When you say us, do you mean Tri-County Health?
Tri-County.
Oh,
Yes.
you don't mean the steering committee.
That is the function. Steering committee?
Are they public?
Well, they are in the way that it's all of us coming together, yes.
But I mean, does the general public hear about them?
No.
I need a clarification on we are going to comment on the 5-year review. Who's we? Is that just Tri-County Health, or is that the board, a board member of the steering committee? Who's the we?
What statement were you referring to?
Yeah, but I
You make comment, you said we make comment.
actually, all the agencies around the table have made comments as part of the 5-year review. They're actually in the back of the 5-year review.
But
There's
when
comments
you
from
say
city,
we-
county, and Tri-County.
When you say we, do you mean the steering committee?
No, the steering committee did not make any comments.
They made no comment, okay, you clarified it for me, thank you.
But there are comments in there from Tri-County.
I think what you're saying is that you did interview.
Other facilities, Rocky Mountain Arsenal, in the past, we've had the same thing. We have steering committees and maybe medical monitoring groups, and you have MAGs and tags, and you can have different city steering committees. So it just varies for whatever works, and a mechanism to bring locals and everybody together.
The general minute,
We
make
do
comments
minutes
on
and we
that.
give the minutes out, and I think the minutes have been shared with Farms Group before, so.
No, they have not.
So it
we
seems,
do have minutes.
Any-
That's
hang on,
not what the topic is tonight.
Well, no, hang on for a second. I have a suggestion, because it seems to me like this is
I'm not
real.
on the agenda.
No, but it's, I think it came up initially had Rebecca's report out, and I think that one of the questions, I mean, this to me seems like a real question. A question of exactly what the role of the steering committee is with Lowry, and if it's something that should, how it relates to CAG at the very least, so that people are clear. And to what, I mean, it seems like there's some questions about are there things happening at the steering committee? Sounds like the steering committee hasn't met since last fall, but when it does reconstitute, if it does, and we meet, are there things happening in that forum that for some reason should involve or be open to other concerned entities, non CAG? And so my sense is that we table that question, but know that it's a real question. There may be a clear answer, there may be some input and comments, there may be other people who want to weigh in, but my sense is that's a real question, and that we go on, but we capture it, and we may have time at the end of this meeting. We may need to queue it up for the next meeting just as a topic, but to me it seems like it is a real question.
It seems to me that the steering committee is duplicate work to the technical issues meeting.
So
And
that,
you got people
They go
walking
in
on each
line.
other.
They go in line.
so
and so I
Lynn and John Hamm, I'm so sorry to interrupt just because I wanted to get to but those comments, like that comment exactly, John, is one of the things that I think should be aired. Like, are these duplicate? Are we concerned that they're working at cross purposes? Could they be more symbiotic? But can at least we have clarity so it's transparent? So that's my sense that we should come back to. Can I have, I mean, are people okay with that? Just for the purpose of getting, okay. I'm seeing nodding heads and I'm hoping that's okay. I'm gonna record some of the questions that just came up so that we don't lose them. And we'll make sure to come back to it. And
Well, let me put it on my list of things to do too, to reach out to Tri-County Health and better understand the roles.
okay, so
So we
one
can
thing that we
report on
know
next
is gonna happen is that EPA is gonna be following. At least there'll be that after this meeting, but we'll, okay. So that said, we had a couple of new people join us. Rebecca, you were gonna continue with updates, I think, last two, and probably Jennifer as well. Can we do a quick introduction? I know Dave and Lee and probably other people came in.
Don's over there.
Okay, so whoever has not introduced themselves, can we start with you and you guys to do so?
I'm Scott Wilson with Buckley Air Force Base. I'm Don Bussey with US EPA.
Lee Pavanka with State Health Department.
Involvement about the Air Force Base.
Dave Womack, City County Member.
Okay, good, thank you. Can we turn back to you, Rebecca? Were you still doing, or are we done with updates?
I was getting done with my part of it. I'd like to turn it over to Les for an update on some of the technical work that's been happening for the last month or so. And then I think Jennifer, do you have a quick update for us on the tag? Very brief update. And then towards the end, I'd kind of like to bring it back to a discussion on how we might like to continue to work with the CAG and the eventual technical assistance advisor as well. Have a short conversation about that at the end. Yeah, let's come back to that.
Okay.
So, Les, would you mind?
First, since Don is actually leaving tomorrow, he's, as he indicated, he's from US EPA. Don is actually from the environmental response team. That's the high level technical support group that we think. That's the high level technical. So Don is actually here just for today, and he's flying back out. But he's a part of the team, and I think he spent the day with Lee touring the facility and kind of catching up on things, all things groundwork. Thank you, Don, for coming out.
Glad to be here.
So just real quickly, we had planned on providing updates, obviously, to each meeting, and sometimes it seems redundant. We say we're working on work plans that we've talked about in previous meetings, and we're still working on them, stay tuned. And we still think it's important to do that, to let you know that we are working on these. Sometimes they are kind of time consuming. We run into issues and we have to work through those issues amongst a lot of people, contractors and EPA and the WSD and the state. So it is a time-consuming process. Before I go into the update, I would like to recognize Tom for providing the comments to the PLTW work plan. I appreciate the time and effort that it takes to sit down and read through documents like that and provide comments on what appears to be very short notice. We provide those comments to the WSDs and also to my contractor, PWT. And we're hopeful that we'll get some answers back to you in response to your questions sometime next week. Initially, we're looking at finalizing a document on the 18th. And I got the impression that you may need a little bit more time after giving it to the rest of the CAG members. So having said that, we have until next week. So if there's any additional comments that you feel that may not have been captured in your email to me, this is the time to provide that.
Thank you.
So we're working on primary 3 issues right now. We've had as I mentioned, the POTW pipeline work plan, POTW publicly owned treatment works, the water treatment pipeline, taking a small pipe and turning it into a bigger pipe. We completed that effort. And once we get the responses back to Tom's comment, we'll give you a chance to see if that sufficiently answered your concerns. And if they did, if we have consensus, then we plan on finalizing that sometime next week. That's one part of that. And as you know, there's a whole permit process tied into that, and that'll be another part of it that we'll provide you with the CAG with an update on as we move forward. The physical part, the applicant's value update, the WSDs have work plan to talk about the potable water cessation work plan. Let's see, where are we on that? And Lee may have to chime in here too. We provided
The plan to stop injecting.
Yeah. The potable water cessation work plan to stop. Yeah, discontinuation of the potable water injection. Work plan with DQO, the data quality objectives, received drafts from Tim Shangra.
June 6th.
June 7th for some reason.
Or maybe it is June 7th.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm off a day.
So we're in the middle of providing comments. I think we have some comments coming from the state here.
Yeah,
pretty
the
soon.
state, if you didn't get an email yet from Doug, he's requesting an extension to the end of the month, to the 29th. So we're in the same path right now with the public as far as the POTW upgrade work plan and the cessation work plans.
Okay, great. So once we get those, we have comments from PWT, our contractor, our remedial action contract. We'll get with the state, we can compare notes and have a conversation with the WSDs. I believe not only Tim Shangra, but also Steve Plumingsland is involved with this as well. And I guess we'll have that conversation in terms of providing that document to the CAG for review and comments, what that looks like. We'd like to get it out to you as soon as possible, but we'd like to take a look at it first, if that's okay, and along with the state, just to make sure that we have that we're on the same page in terms of what our thoughts are with the document, as well as the WSPs. So I would say stay tuned for that. I hate to put a date out there, but I'm hoping within the next week or two, we'll have an opportunity to sit down with the state and also with the WSDs and our team to go over comments and get back with you and with an opportunity for you to provide some input as well. The groundwater monitoring plan, this is actually on my list. This is in reference to Bonnie's letter. Okay.
It's from the whole.
Not the groundwater one. So Dina Crumling out of headquarters, our statistician, took a look at, she was actually tasked with doing the evaluation of the statistical model that we use to determine a lot of our stats model. That went into effect, I believe, 2013 in response to EPA's evaluation of the system that found some of its violation. And she did an overall audit of the most recent SSR operations and maintenance report. And she reported out on her findings on the compliance as well as the recommendation. The WSDs have a few questions about, just for clarification, mainly about some of the language in the report. So we're going to give them an opportunity to meet with Dina Crumlin before we release that document to the public. A work plan is not something for review, but I just want to make sure that Dina is comfortable with what we're releasing and have an opportunity to talk to, I think it's Paul Wasatsko is your person out there, your stats person. So,
Unless it sounds like you forwarded the CAG's input to others.
I'm sorry,
You've shared.
Bonnie, but she responded directly to your letter. Those,
Are concerned about the injection of potable water.
yeah, she got
She
it.
included that in
Yeah.
her overall review.
Yeah, we had a conversation before she received the letter. And she had no problem with including that in her report as well, and responding to that. I think she did a pretty adequate job.
So you're saying that when she gets back from her vacation, that then we may hear from her response?
Yeah, when she gets back, again, she'll talk with Paul Wasatsko, kind of work out some clarification
Okay.
language in the report. And at that particular time, we'll probably make it final. Again, it's not a work plan for review, it's just a report out. But she'll be available to answer any questions once you receive a copy of the report. So.
So why can't we have a copy of the draft so we can compare draft to final after the WSDs make their comment?
Well, again, this is not a work plan, and it's not something that's open for public comment. This is a report.
But we
So this is a report.
might not want to comment. We might want to compare her draft to the final.
Just as we just want to make sure that the team is comfortable that it's accurate and correct, yes. But I think what might be useful maybe is when we're ready to provide that information, I'm certain that we could come prepared to a CAG, for example, to talk through it a little bit, if that would be helpful.
That'd be great.
That sound good? Len?
Yeah, it does, and that hit the nail on the head. Their concern is legal. They just want to make sure they're not putting out something to the public that could get them in a little bit of trouble.
Makes sense.
So the idea is when the report is available and final, that it would be the CAG, and I think like there would be a discussion about it, presentation of what, but with, I mean, I know she's not here, right, but.
She's not here, but we can pull ourselves together to do something.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's a document that we can easily put up on the website as well. Yeah, again, it's just an evaluation.
Okay.
So that's where we're at with everything. So just we're chugging along. We're making some progress, and we actually have a couple of items that we consider checked off the box. They were small, but give credit where credit's due. You know, we one of the deficiencies that we found in the 5-year review was related to the sampling, the methods used to sample, and even though they were both validated, they came out a little differently, and that was mainly because of the different methodologies used for the internal standard. So we're kind of aligned now. So once we start sampling and we get the results back, we should have a little bit closer. We should have closer results than we did before, just because we're using the same methodology, the same internal standards, et cetera, et cetera. And this one will be debatable, but we believe we've made a really effort in addressing the site documents to the site file deficiency that we identified in the 5-year review. It specifically says the repository, but I think being creative, we've actually been able to use our website to deposit some of those documents for the state as well as EPA, and I think that's working well. So,
We're going to talk a little bit about that.
okay.
Yeah.
So that's all I have. Any questions? Concerns? Good jokes?
Well, and just to move this along, I think that Jennifer had a couple, but thanks, Les.
We're gonna come back to me.
Very closely with Bonnie, and I guess you guys are in the process of filling out the application, and my understanding is as soon as that application is received, EPA is prepared to try to do whatever we can to get that through as quickly as possible. So I think I heard somewhere between 2 and 4 or 5 weeks through time at most, so
That'd be great.
that's what we're.
Do you know when you're gonna have the application in?
Oh my gosh, no, I just been trying to get the duns and everything else done, and they're having it all cut, but I finally got it done today. So tomorrow I'll probably start on the actual application. I had to join Sam they make you join SAM so that
I don't even know
the
what that
federal
is.
government can advertise your services out there. So I mean, there's all these things you have to join to
Did you have to
get.
do that before?
Yes, yes. And it's, so anyway, I've joined, I've got the right numbers, and now it's filling in the blanks. So I think I can have it done probably this week.
And you're working with Sisay on that?
Yes. Yes.
Not to put any more pressure on you, but you know, the federal government works on a fiscal year and our fiscal year ends at the end of September.
Yes,
And at some point in time, they just quit spending money.
you better quit long after we apply.
Okay, well, I'm just apply
No
sooner rather than later.
Too late. All right, Jennifer, did you have one more thing or was that it?
Did you want to say something about the fact sheet? Your review
Oh,
fact sheet?
well, yeah,
We're close.
We are very close to having a fact sheet available for the public that just simply summarizes the 5-year review that was published last September. I have actually sent a draft out to the co-chairs of the CAG in case the CAG wants to take a look at it. And basically, as soon as we get final comments on that, we're going to finalize it. So we should have it for the next CAG meeting.
I don't know if this is a question for tonight or if this is maybe another topic for a different time. We had talked about the difference between the state, somebody's gonna have to help me, the 0.35 versus 0.9 for the Lowry site using a different standard than everybody else.
And are you thinking this get triggered because that would be something that would be useful to be summarized in the fact?
And if you had something, it'd be great to put it in a fact sheet, but otherwise maybe we can talk about it in another meeting.
If you, Jennifer, want to make a note of that, if there's some way to, obviously it's a big topic,
I
but.
have a big question. It's not going to show up in the fact sheet because it's a pretty high level summary
Exactly.
of a big.
But regardless of that, how it can be addressed in fact sheet, it certainly is we've touched on obviously the background behind it, but it's a discussion question that you'd like to get into it. So I'm going to note it, and then maybe that at the next meeting we can just devote some time. Now that people have some basic baseline education around the terms and the.
But just so everybody hears the right term, it's the state standard at 0.35 versus the performance standard for the site, which is 0.9.
I think we're thinking a lot about how best to work collaboratively within our own regulatory agency team and also with the Citizens Advisory Group. And there are a lot of big questions out there. You've just raised one. I mentioned one earlier about trying to define vertical delineation of the plume. Another one is trying to figure out if there are any exposures to the well offsite. A lot still struggling a little bit with workflow and schedule and priority and which work comes first, which work comes second, just the sequencing of trying to answer all of these questions because some of the information we get will help inform the next step, the next study, that kind of thing. So next all-day technical meeting, we're going to spend a couple of hours just talking about schedule and how the work gets sequenced and how and when we can answer some of these questions. And I think once we're able to share a schedule with the Citizens Advisory Group, that will help us all identify what the priorities are and which ones we want to pick off first, because it's really hard to work on everything all at one time. There's just so much going on. So I'd like to suggest that for a topic in July is to think a little bit about schedule and how we sequence our work. The other thing I'm really interested in is, I don't know how the agencies have worked historically with the Citizens Advisory Group, but I want to make sure that we have meaningful engagement. And one thing that I don't find very helpful is for the agencies and work settling defendants to come up with a final work plan, send it to the Citizens Advisory Group and say, okay, you've got 2 weeks, or okay, you've got 30 days, and it just becomes letters back and forth. To me, that's not very helpful. I'd rather have a discussion about some of the work that we're doing as we're doing it to get a little bit more engagement. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet. I think once we have a chance to look at the schedule together, that may help. I think once you have your technical advisor on board, that may help a little bit too. So I appreciate you bringing up the question. I don't know if it's going to be timely for next month or not, but it's certainly one of the big questions that that we also were on to EPA earlier this week. Was it just earlier this week? So I think it's a good path. So I don't know if anybody from the CAG has any thoughts on what I've laid out, or how you might want to work with us on these work plans as they get developed moving forward, or it's kind of hard to nail it down tonight because we don't have a schedule to look at and that kind of thing. I think what none of us want is to get into a situation where we're bouncing comments back and forth to the point that we're delaying work.
Yes.
Because we want to have our questions answered, right? So I'd rather work together as we go along and understand what the issues are as we go, rather than getting a letter saying, what are you doing? And starting all over again from scratch.
Well, one possibility is that at the next July meeting, one thing we could do, if you all have a sort of draft schedule to share, is, well, whenever that's ready, is to go through it and talk about, okay, at what point is it going to be useful to get community input on these, and what are the priority topics for the community? Because it may not be, it may be everything we want to, we'd like 2-week review for everything, just to see it and be able to offer a couple thoughts, but here are the ones that we really want to engage with everyone. And then there could be some kind of, that could be built into the schedule somehow, so there's not a scramble of things like community members. That could be, that's one way to do it. Once the schedule is prepared, and then it will depend on the technical.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Additional thoughts about that? Any reactions, responses?
We appreciate as well having a conversation. It was a good meeting. And one thing that we were talking about during our work study meetings, or during our CAG meetings, is if we really want to discuss these issues in these work plans, what about recording meetings? And how does that impact us? And how can we have a really frank and open discussion about the various issues? Does this inhibit people? And we discussed maybe having a work study session where we would stop the recording and be able to just discuss. And whatever came out, we could discuss and get it on the table. And we were feeling that everyone at the table may be concerned about, if they mention something that's a concern to them, will that be brought back and haunt them later on just because they mentioned it? So I'm not sure how most other people here feel, but when Tom and I mentioned it, that this is one of the things we had discussed, we didn't get any negative thoughts on it. And so we'd like people to be thinking about that.
So for CAG meetings, after the announcements, when there's actually some discussion, that we just say, let's go off the video now, have us. Maybe we can call it something other than workspace session, because that's what you all do in between, but whatever.
A study session. I mean, the city of Aurora has study sessions, and we could have study sessions, right, Karen?
Exactly.
Yes.
So I have a question, or just something for you to think about as we talk about that, and I'm trying to figure out how to make that into content. Is if there are two things happening right now, we're streaming and we're recording. So if you wanted to have folks that are watching, and we have 3 other than us here, continue to watch the study session just when we record it, there's an option. Or do we just shut everything off?
Oh, that's interesting.
So ponder, does this,
We can decide that, I think, in our future meeting when we talk about schedules. But I think the schedules will kind of fall into place when you tell us, or EPA tells us, and the state tells us what their schedule looks like, and whether there's going to be a work plan or not be a work plan. I think it'll fall into place pretty quickly.
Okay.
Do you know who is watching right now?
because I'm recording it, you will too, if you watch the recording.
All right, because we all introduce ourselves. If we could have others introduce themselves.
Well, we're not doing an interactive thing with people watching at the moment. But I can tell you, Lori Peterson Wright, who presented at the last meeting, something with PWT. Was that?
PWT.
Yeah, contract, EPA's contracted works on this, and Sonia Sackett.
Oh,
Sackett is on that. And then I'm on twice.
Well,
Well, I'm monitoring it from here, and I'm recording it there, so
Okay,
it's my own
that's great.
industry.
That's so good. Updates on responses, this is really helpful, I think. And if we can, I'd love to turn it over to Janine and Jennifer, I think, to talk about the next item, which is records. State is gonna give an orientation to your site, and Jennifer, while Denise has set up, do you have any, you already sort of gave an update, but is there anything else to say about EPA's website and what records are available in a way that's different from last?
I'm not aware of any changes to our website last month. Was anything come up that you're aware of?
Okay. Any questions about EPA's website while Janine's setting it? Or records?
I'll just mention that one of the complete remedial investigation from 1992. I'm not suggesting that's something people want to pick up tonight and just rip through, but from a standpoint of a reference document for the groundwater, it's a substantial piece. And the point of that is that if you look at that document and there are questions that come up, that's the kind of stuff we'd encourage as well. So. And I'd specifically recommend section 4 if you really want to get into stuff, so.
Can you say exactly what it's called and where it is?
It's called the remedial investigation for operable unit 1 and operable unit 6.
Okay.
And operable unit 1 is called shallow groundwater and subsurface liquids. And OU6 is called deep groundwater.
Okay.
And this translation is not on the cover, but OU1 is basically Dawson Aquifer, and OU6 is the Denver Aquifer.
And where is it on the website?
It's in the list of documents,
Okay.
and you can look. So you go down to 1992, and my guess is that's probably the earliest document you have. Yikes. Anyway, 1992 is how you find it on the list. They come up chronologically. So.
Okay, thanks, Lee. Janine.
Hold on a moment, because this isn't on a PowerPoint, this is live.
Live online.
I'm sending a text to the folks on, that are streaming in and the folks that are, on the phone. There's somebody on the phone too. You can either go here now, or you can, I can send you this, well, it'll be on the website too. It's also accessible from the Lowry landfill website. I think it's on the CAG page too, it's on both. I'm trying to avoid getting it here on at the table because they're getting a little through the back of my head.
Brownie break.
This nice,
Yeah, brownie. Sorry, guys. you're late.
Oh, I forgot to say that Emily and Tom, especially Emily, brought, I think maybe, right? That's what Tom usually says, amazing guacamole chips and brownies. So. And some coffee is in the back. Anyway, thank you guys so much.
All right,
Fantastic.
you're ready back from the brownie break.
Okay.
These are just for Rebecca now.
Yes, you get a chocolate on it.
I think you have the floor. Or you have something. And just a time check that it's 6:55, so we're running a bit late.
I don't think this will take too
Yeah,
long.
yeah.
What I did is I developed this sheet here, if everybody has it in their hand. And I developed just some simple tricks on ways to navigate through this system. It is not so intuitive. Today and I have had some lovely conversations with our records management people when we couldn't find documents this way and they couldn't find documents this way. And so I, in my usual fashion, I found a workaround, and this is it. Get to this form, you are actually looking in our Hewlett-Packard record. Oh, it's already here. before 2012, we didn't scan things in and have them electronically available anywhere. Nobody did. But then 2012, that became a possibility. We changed our division policy, started getting documents electronically automatically. And so we built this database, and it's pretty nice. So when you get in here, you may find documents that are older than 2012 and not downloadable because they're not out there, but they're paper in a box someplace. So what I tell folks is if you can wait, contact me, contact our records center, and we will retrieve the document, have it scanned in, and then put it out there on Records Management. Or you can request it and come into the Records Center during normal business hours and review it that way. So basically what's out there is anything that is considered public information for a state agency. Here, that's what's on, what you can access on that. Okay? I'm going to jump down here to where it says additional tips. The workaround for our system is avoid punctuation at all costs, except for 1,4-dioxane, which everybody puts a comma. It's universal, it's in everything. But several meetings ago, I gave the CAG a list of the 6,000 plus documents we have for this site in our records management system. And so one of the things I was trying to do is put the name of the document here to search for it. And it's frustrating, you can't find anything that way because it may not actually be listed that way. Or there's a typo, or there's a number of things that go wrong. So this is my workaround, and it'll give you a range of documents, but you can control how they're fed to you. So my first tip here is you see the very first, the top line of the title word. For this site, it'll always be Lowry Landfill. You don't have to capitalize anything. There it is. You always put that there. It tells the system where to go look, what site it is. The next possibility here is you can select a number of other parameters. You can see that. So the first example I give here is, what if you wanted to search for site records in a certain time period? So let's say you wanted the most recent. We want to look at the most recent documents that have been uploaded to Records Management. So you would go to date created, and let's say you want them in 2018. Let's just keep it this short, keep it simple. And then, maybe there's hundreds or there might be. Okay, let's go see what we get. And there you have it. So they're organized from the most recent, June 8th, 2018. Vicinity maps in here. We got a bunch of things. So you can see what most recently we have uploaded into the system. Sometimes that's useful because you want to keep track of what we're doing. For instance, that list I gave you of the 6,000 plus documents is outdated now because we have added more. Right? Okay. Know that our is there anything here you would want to point out?
Excuse me, are some of those files so cumbersome that you can't download them?
No.
They're none that big?
We have workarounds on all of it.
But patience is a virtue, you have to kind of
So
still,
you can, get your brownie and some coffee, walk the
Yes.
dog.
but it
Some
will
of it may be
download.
difficult, but, no. I mean, we've got 260 meg files that I can pick up on my little computer at home, so yeah. That was a problem in the beginning. Anything here, Lee, that you would want to point out? Okay, let's go to
You
more.
can just prove it by downloading one, see if that's gonna break it by downloading something, but I hope not.
I think we don't have time, if that's okay.
That's okay.
I am.
All right, so let's look at something more substantial.
Oh, so
First,
close.
just try it yourself. Glass of wine. So let's say we want to try something that has some substance. So you want key phrases. Remember I said avoid documentation, but what's really cool with this group is that 1,4-dioxane is a hot item.
So you wouldn't hyphenate it?
Nope.
Okay.
That would be being discussed amongst the agencies and we're selling credits actually right now. So very important documents, and especially in the last year or so. Good stuff. Something else I wanted to point out to you, let me try one more because I'm happy with this one. We were trying to find, this is the one that so these are also very hot items right now. So a suggestion that you might want to do some reading on your own. Right up here, you see this word help. This is a wall of words in my humble opinion. And so I really literally couldn't make it all read through it. My eyes glazed over. But you may find something useful here too, as far as, and it's in blue. It's actually a link. That means when you pull up a document, you can also find other documents generated by the same entity. So what Tom had found was that he had a document that was generated by Lisa Blanca, and when he clicked that, when Tom clicked that same contact, it pulled up all these documents that Lisa Blanca generated. And I pointed out that you understand it's only one side of the conversation. I'm just saying. Just so you know, but it is a way, like if you got one that is generated by the person on defendants, maybe you want to see some more of what their work is. You can do that on the system. It's pretty neat. Once you get to move around it, it's pretty neat.
When it says date created, is that the date that the document actually was created, or is that the date it got posted up?
It's the date it got posted up there. Now, Lee is one of our better project managers about getting them posted, like as soon as he gets them.
You open the document probably as the date that it was written.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, but it'd be dated in the document. Yeah. But you can see pretty much when we got it. Some of our project managers get pretty overwhelmed, a lot of stuff coming, they may get to it today, they may not get to it until next month, you know, but he's really good at it.
And Janine has this down, so if there's frustration or confusion or questions, I would suggest talking to her. Do not talk to me.
And I did put my name and number and email and all that on
Oh,
that.
awesome.
It's like everywhere else, but just so you know, you can call and I can walk you through it, we can go get some coffee and we can sit there with our computer. Seriously, I do this stuff all the time.
That's awesome. That's so great. Okay. Any kind of questions? Really useful. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janine.
So, as you all remember, there was a question at the last meeting about utilities infrastructure, and Sean from the city of Aurora was asked to come speak, and I think we'll just turn over to you Karen, and then I think the idea is to have this be relatively totally informal, if you don't have a PowerPoint or anything like that, so if you're comfortable having it pretty interactive with people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hope you all going to about 7:45, and then we'll just do some closing wrap up, make sure we know what we're doing for next meeting. Is that so good? Okay.
I probably can jump in first.
Yeah, no.
I probably need to scoot out of here as soon as I can.
Okay.
I'm actually headed out of town tomorrow and have it passed, so I need to get home and pack. So I brought a larger map, so.
Do you want to come up here?
Yeah.
I'm gonna move this chair.
You may need a map.
I think I have some.
So I handed out a map of just everybody, that's not gonna show up.
Let's put the screen up, I think we can put it on the board. So we get the screen up.
Here, let me put that up for you. Hold on.
I'll be a button over there. That's fine.
Well, that's
For the time being, I'll just kind of try to hold this. This is the map I handed out to all you, just a little bit larger size. And I wasn't here last time, so I'm not sure I fully understand what the question and what exactly you all were interested in knowing. So I did my best to try and put together a map that shows primarily our raw water infrastructure. So we have a raw line. So if you're looking at your map, this line that comes along Gun Club, and at the bottom of the map that you have, I kind of put a key to it a little bit. So this line here is our raw water line that comes up and feeds the reuse pond out at North Creek on the golf course. And so it comes up along Gun Club. It actually comes up along the west side of Gun Club, crosses over, comes along the east side, and then kind of comes in and feeds the pond here. as you look at this, and if you kind of look into the map a little bit, and this was not our base map, this was a map that was actually provided to me by Karen, and shows kind of the groundwater level here. So all these dashed and blue lines that you see kind of in the middle are the groundwater levels based off of some survey work that had been done, sampling and analysis work. In this map, you can also see some road infrastructure that looks like roads. Unfortunately, those roads, to my knowledge, are not actually in right now. And in those roads, we do have some infrastructure in our GIS system. And I apologize, I did not have a chance to check with our engineering department to find out if that infrastructure has actually been installed or was just been proposed. But obviously this raw water line is definitely in. And what I did here off to the side on the maps that you have in front of you, and I apologize, I don't know that I brought enough for everybody, so I apologize for that. I wasn't sure how many we were gonna have, so I think I brought about copies of about 20 of them. You can kind of see two numbers that I drew kind of off to the side, and these are just numbers based off of infrastructure maps that we could have. And the first number that you see there is the actual ground level. And these are all in feet. So 5707 is the ground level of that area at that point. And then the pipe level is that next number, and I have it, I think, in parentheses in blue on the map, is what our pipe level is. So it's about 5702. So if you look at those two, our pipe is about 5 feet below the surface of the ground.
Is that pipe level bottom of pipe or top of pipe?
I believe it is the top of pipe.
Okay. What's the size of the pipe approximately? 3 foot?
Yeah, I think it's a 36-inch pipe.
Okay.
I don't know that offhand, but if I remember correctly, I believe it's a 36-inch pipe. And so you can kind of see it as you go up. I mean, typically our pipe has been buried about 5 feet below the level of the surface. If you kind of then go across the map and look at in comparison to the associated groundwater in that area, groundwater is on average probably about 40 to 45 feet below the surface of the ground. So our infrastructure is anywhere from 30 to 35 feet above that level of groundwater within that area.
I have a question. So I'm trying to understand the groundwater level. Is that the top of the groundwater or the bottom of the groundwater?
From my understanding, this is the point at when they contacted the top.
When they
Yeah, this is the water table.
Yeah, this is the top
All
of
those
the water
contours.
table.
That's the top.
Yes.
So it can be way deeper, shallow below that, right?
Well, Sean just said like 40 feet. He's doing the math here.
Yeah, so if you take
it's not
this
shallow.
across, so 5707, like that bottom number on there, if you follow that line across, the groundwater level is 5655, approximately. About 40 feet below the surface of the ground in that area. So the pipe is still about 35 or so feet. You know, 30 to
So the
35.
groundwater has to rise about 30 or 40 feet before it
You're
would
not gonna get the
contact.
groundwater rise 30 or
Right,
40 feet.
right.
Contact.
Maybe next millennium, but yeah.
So
Yeah, I think what he was asking was how, is it like a shallow aquifer, or is it like how, the depth of the groundwater?
I don't know how far below this surface level. This is the surface level of where you first contact that groundwater. How deep that water goes, I don't know.
And the
It is
yeah.
considered a shallow, I mean, this is considered a shallow alluvial groundwater flow. I mean, but it's not going to be coming up, and I mean, it could come up slightly above that. But to go 30 feet, you're going to need a lot of infiltration, a lot of water.
So no matter how deep the trench was dug for that pipeline and how much bedding below the pipe is, it's not 30 feet. Maybe.
We don't typically bury our pipes that deep unless we absolutely have to kind of get a slope in a certain area. Access is difficult to access if you had to do maintenance on something. And then I did try to draw on here kind of from what I could tell, this is just really rough sketch, so this is not accurate, this is not GIS, but a rough estimate of where the plume So the blue on there is kind of where the current plume is of 1,4-dioxane in that area.
Tom, you had your hand up a second ago. You still have that. Good.
Yeah, really a lot of what we were trying to talk about. And can I call up there for a moment?
Sure.
And it's not fair to you that we didn't communicate well. We're wondering what the infrastructure plans are. The plans from Murphy Creek between Yale and Jewel Avenue, their constructions, the infrastructure that they already have in place. And we're trying to, determine whether or not that some of that infrastructure, for instance, there are pipelines in there.
There are.
And those pipelines then have below them a gravel level. And they could be potentially a source for contaminant water to be followed from high level down to low level and continue on into maybe even the rest of Murphy Creek, depending on where these things go. Just to give you an example, this is a land use plan. It covers from here to here, and it's the one that they're actually, I guess, working on. And it has in this area, they're planning an elementary school right here. They're planning small or housing development within here. They have pipelines that go along here. And there's another one that comes in down to here, but I'm not sure exactly where. And so that's why we were wondering about the infrastructure. What is planned? Because this is very close to where your plume is or the leachate is. I like to we're trying to get away from plume and go on to leachate because the leachate is actually a plume of 1,4-dioxane and other contaminants of concern. And the 1,4-dioxane itself is the only one that's been found at this point up to Mississippi to be above acceptable levels. But it still has a bunch of other things there.
In terms of, go ahead.
So structure that we would have is essentially in that roadway. So our infrastructure is going to be within that, within that roadway easement, if you will. So, Tom, I don't know how to answer your question entirely, but typically, again, and I don't know the depths of it. I didn't necessarily look into that. I wasn't entirely sure what you guys needed. But again, I would doubt that we would vary that much further than, again, 5 feet. I mean, that's going to be probably a typical depth of what we would bury pipelines. I'm not going to tell you that surface water, when you put in the base material and you put in all the workings, water's going to follow that pipe. I mean, surface water is going to follow preferential pipeline. If you have the pipeline, it's going to follow the least resistance, and where you have a pipe, it's going to tend to follow that. So certainly, as the surface water falls in here and infiltrates in, it has a chance to be following that, those pipelines within the ground. That said, again, it's really only 5 feet deep, so the connection to the groundwater is probably not entirely there. And that's kind of where I was trying to go, just in showing you the depths of where we have our current raw water line, is that the preferential flow, yes, you might have surface water that flows, the groundwater is not going to come up to that area. So yeah, you might have surface water that's going to follow that preferential alignment, but you really probably aren't going to get too much interaction. Okay.
What about sewer lines?
The sewer lines are typically below the drinking water. We don't like to put those above the drinking water line.
I know the sewer line in front of my house is.
I don't know the depths of those, and I can certainly look into that and find that out. I do not have that, so I'd have to look into that offhand. I'm not sure how deep those are in that area.
And conceptually, just in terms of what you were saying about surface water falling up, how this resistance and you say that's.
It's the same type of thing. I mean, it's a line, it's a, water tends to flow in a preferential area where it has the path of least resistance. So if you've got something in the bedding, tends to have, be a little bit more force, so like follow that bedding. So it's certainly gonna happen. And I'm talking surface water.
Consideration for the effect of fracking. I know it's been brought up, and this is a little bit different. Yeah, I understand. I just wondered if it's considered, because there's a fault, right? And so you frack and affect the fault, and you know how it goes. But I don't think it's like a hot topic we need to address right now, but I'm just saying.
Well, it's certainly been brought up before by different folks, so I think it's a pending topic to the CAG.
Okay.
When you all want to address it, and,
Okay.
and we'll get, you can get the people here who have something to say about it.
Yep.
Unless, Sean, you have something you want to say about
I
that.
mean, keep in mind, fracking is done 7,000 feet below the surface of the ground. So you have to have some pretty major effort to have some impact on something that's 40 feet below the surface.
So, back to the development of the homes. You got at least a 15-foot dig for the basement. Then you've got to get a sewer connection to the sewer line, which has to flow downhill. So where she says 22 feet, she could be correct. So 22 feet from 30 feet, we're getting pretty close to could leachate get in, grab the leachate flow, could it get into the bedding, and then away it goes all over. That's what our concern is.
Sure, I understand your concern. Here. And again, I'm not even sure this infrastructure is in. Again, it shows up in our GIS mapping. But I know we had some license agreements in place, but I don't know that it's ever actually been built. So some of this may not actually be in just yet. If it is, I should be able to go in and find as-built drawings and see if I can locate the depths of that, but I don't know that offhand.
Is that something that would be useful to either have Sean sort of send? That would be a useful thing for people to know and for Sean to look into.
And I can certainly amend this map here that I handed out and kind of add in some of the sort of infrastructure. And I can certainly send that around with depths, and once I find that information out and pass that information.
And I can find out if they have basement. Some of those may be a product that does not have a basement, but I could find that out too. I can look at it.
So would you all like, obviously this is a question that's been on CAG members' mind. Would be useful to have, obviously Sean can do a revised map, that information, send it out. If people have questions, concerns, want to talk more about it, and that also what Karen finds, do you want to sort of decide then if you want to have more discussion? Do you have initial thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like him to set it up.
Margie, go ahead.
I have a question about, are there active applications for this?
Yes, and that was the second part of this, so I want to make sure we wrap up any questions on water before we talk about land use on there.
Any other questions for me? Why won't leave me alone?
It keeps jumping between you and Brian.
We want, before Sean, you're going to, so maybe what we should do is hear from Karen on the land use side and the development side, and then if people have additional questions on the water side, at the very least, you're gonna amend this map, circulate it.
And Sean, there may be some things we might be able to research and get back to you on, and if there are, then we'll provide those at the next meeting or ahead of the next meeting.
I just have one question. Wasn't there a map that the CAG gave to somebody that?
Well, that came from our GIS.
That's
They
what it was.
visited our customer service desk, and that's what Sean was
Okay.
saying. He's not sure
All
at
right.
the end, it's just shown.
I gotcha. Thank you.
Just because it's on a map doesn't always.
Understood.
Yeah, this infrastructure I've drawn on here shows up on our GIS.
I gotcha.
map.
All
You
right.
can actually, I don't think you can access the water. You can actually get in there and see the wastewater, I think, on our website. But I don't know, just because it's in our GIS, sometimes
No, I
they
get
put
it.
in
I just
proposals
wanted to
into
make
our
sure that
GIS.
map was
Yeah.
somewhere, so.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so, 2 quick questions and then we'll come to the.
Only thing is, if you were able to show the contour, the actual labels on the topo,
This comes in and your topography changes.
I'm sure, but
Yeah.
all I'm getting at is for the people that want to know how deep is the water.
Right, yeah, I mean, we can
At a
have this
given
in
point.
addition to it.
Yes,
but I
yes.
think another one showing.
Fair
another
enough.
base.
Thank you.
Margie, you had something else?
I could be wrong, but wasn't the EPA, the headquarters told that the developer has no plans to put any residential?
Blank stare. That's,
Okay.
did I say
Don, have you heard anything about this? No.
There's blank.
Oh, I know, I can straighten this out. It was during our tour when Aaron, the attorney for
Oh.
EPA, was with us. And,
Aaron Chancellor.
yes, Aaron Chancellor, and we were talking, we were up on top of the hill, and,
Patrick Davis?
Patrick Davis asked David if the city had considered putting in any kind of, pumps or I can't remember his exact words, to stop any movement down towards Murphy
Or a
Creek.
wall.
And no, it wasn't a wall. He wanted to know if they put in pumps or a barrier. That was it. And that he was told by the city of Denver that the city of Aurora said they're only going to allow commercial.
I'd like you to see it for yourself.
Right.
And I think I'm gonna be able to bring up our webpage, has the information.
Oh, good.
I'd like you to look at that.
Okay? And I do remember back in the 90s when we had the Aurora Task Force, I sat on that, and the discussion at that time was that it would be commercial, that it's close to the. I
So I'd
realized
love to
that.
tell you about zoning,
Yes.
because zoning is never.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this was in 93,
It's
so.
easy to change, and I'm actually gonna talk. I think I brought enough of these. I'm gonna start on this side because I'd like to make sure that I tag.
So you have there's something on your website.
There, yeah, it's a, I can. Okay, zoning code is the architecture for the house that you bought, and those design standards hopefully were good and you have beautiful homes. So zoning code has a lot to do with layout of communities and neighborhoods. At some point, and I believe it was before there were a lot of neighbors out here, we have our landfill code.
Thanks, everybody.
And talks about notice.
Thank you.
And I put a map on because it is very specific to the geography of Aurora. And I am meeting with the interim city manager tomorrow to talk about any issues that have come up on comments on our zoning code. So I was very interested in getting your feedback, if you have feedback, and I'm looking specifically at this part of the room. Zoning code affects you guys. And if you can see Aurora from your place of business, I'm looking at Scott, because I know he can see from his place of business, or from your home, if you can see Aurora, zoning code might matter to you. So I'm not stereotyping, but I'm kind of guessing there's a lot of people. I know I have one Aurora resident over on this side. But I'd like you to look at it, and I'm providing feedback and I'm taking comments. And this project is going to get finalized before the end of the year. So I think you can probably scan it. I know a couple of you have seen this before. I'm not sure where it came from. I heard that our Mayor Hogan had something to do with it, and I cannot confirm if that's true. So he passed away on May 13th. So I have no ability to check that out. So I don't know where this came from. I don't know how to research it. I just know it happened. So it's very changeable. It does need to go through a city council process. So to change it, I need to take it from the council. So love to have your written comments. I can leave this with you, or if you get a chance to look at it and you want to bring it on, you can bring it on. Because I'm guessing you're gonna have some questions.
Could we scan in an electronic
You
scan
can,
that
I'll
to?
do, yeah, we'll get you
We'll
a
include
copy.
it with the news.
So while we're here, if you go to residents, and then there's neighborhood planning is what I'm looking for right here, okay?
Neighborhood resources.
Neighborhood planning, right? So if you go to the website, it's residents, neighborhood planning. This is our active development map. And if you click on that, it shows you all the active development applications.
I have it in my favorites, by the way.
I hope you do. I trained you well. So, we have a great map.
Years ago, and there was nothing on the south side of Jewel.
Okay, well,
That's what I got there.
I like to look at the zoning maps. Stuff can go on the south side of Jewel, and this. To the south side of Jewel. So, things I just need you to look at, so you can see, and then there's a legend for this somewhere.
Don't you hover over it?
Corner.
If you hover the mouse over, doesn't
Yeah,
it
there
have
you
a
go.
pop-up?
Or you can click on it. Like the development, and it gives you a little arrow over there. So this gives you all the, documents.
Normally it'll just show a little pop-up.
Yeah, and, you can use it off your phone too, so.
It's
and then
really, it's good. It's easy to navigate.
You can see what's going on, and a lot of times John can see something going on from his house, and someone's got a grading permit. Or a stormwater management permit, or something.
I'm calling Karen.
And a lot of times they need to get out there, it has to do with how you finance development, I'm not gonna give you a lecture on that, but developers need to get out there and start getting their money back, so things happen very fast once you see something on here. This also gives you the opportunity to get some public comments, so if it's an active application, then you can make comments. And then the other thing I wanted to do is, if we could go back and go to City Hall maps. I'll let you navigate back. And we do have breadcrumbs somewhere. Yes. I think are you still?
We can't go back and just close them.
Yeah, to close them,
Close
right.
it, yeah.
That's you guys do that. We do those roads.
But we have a zoning map and it'll tell you what land uses are permitted in the area that you're interested in. So it's City Hall, and maps, and maps. So, maps. Okay, so click for full Aurora Maps page. This is a pretty robust site. A lot of information in here, but there's going to be a zoning map in here. And in our update, we are updating the land use map, and it will be shown. So I think that's the Aurora zoning there over on the right. Sorry, I'm standing right in front of you. Just guess, okay. So, this is the area, if you could, can you zoom in on the area of concern? I'm going to get out of your way so that you can. Over here are the zoom slide. It's right up there. I know this is so hard to see. Okay. So I think you can see, you can see Murphy Creek there. Where are we? Okay, yeah, for a little, there we go. I see Highway 30. And this is the brown there, that is City of Aurora. That landfill is not in a color because we cannot zone landfill because it's not in the City of Aurora. We are a home rule city, by the way, have every right to have land use regulations. That is residential, all of it. Except where you see the red, those are commercial. You can see the open space, which is the Murphy Creek Golf Course. So most of that is north of the landfill is zoned for residential.
So it's pretty dense too.
Yeah.
It's planned to be pretty dense.
So if you have any questions about that, I'm your point of contact. There is no notice to potential residents in that area. So,
And this zoning thing talks about protecting the south, east, and west from the landfill site, and doesn't address north at all, which is where we are, Murphy Creek, north of this site, so.
that's correct. That's correct. If you have any comments, you might want to send those to me.
Elaborate on what the heck.
And also, that every development application shall be accompanied by an agreement in a form satisfactory to city council who will hold harmless the city of Aurora from any damage claims arising from permission to develop.
You might want to make your comments in writing.
Well,
I think that's the
I will
feedback you're gonna
mention
get.
that it only has to, that is only a requirement for the parts of the land from land for the town of Aurora. So,
Say that again?
And that
the
is
area that applies to is not in Aurora, because it's a quarter mile, right? Isn't it a quarter mile from section
Nothing
6?
north.
And that's not in Aurora.
within 1/4 mile of these sources.
So those areas aren't in Aurora.
But that's.
But not the north.
It stands to the north.
So it's let's protect
That's
everybody
Aurora.
except the citizens.
This was
So
from,
if you have any comments, you might have to submit them in writing to me. You have my email address. Okay, so I'm presenting and I'm taking the comments to the interim city manager tomorrow at 3 o'clock. So that would be very helpful to have anything.
Has Mike Tyler looked at this, you know?
Yes, he has.
Did he say anything?
So Karen, in addition to getting comments from residents by tomorrow midday, do you want any verbal comments tonight? Would those be helpful? Can you relay those or?
I think I'm hearing
Are you getting
everyone.
what okay, you're getting the verbal comments?
I've heard them, I'm hearing them.
there was a ordinance specifically in 1987 that was ordinance 87-165, and it's regarding development and occupational structures in the facility of Flower Landfill. And in there, the city stated they want to provide for the safety, preserve the health, protect the welfare, improve the order, comfort, and convenience of the city of Aurora and its inhabitants. And yet, in 1993, they revised that and got rid of that. They also, so basically I'm saying, why is the city of Aurora now not concerned about the people that live in it?
I can't answer that question, except that
Why
I
not?
don't believe that that's true. I think that this is very old language and that it hasn't been looked at in a very long time, and that we're shining a light on it right now so that you can get comments in. And if you do not get them in by 3 o'clock tomorrow, that's okay. You can still send me comments. It's just helpful, and I'm asking because I have an audience with someone who might be able to give me some direction.
Are you talking about comments about the brown section?
Well, just that this land
Like
use
that.
code, and this is what we're updating right now.
So the comments that we've already submitted are something different, they're not pertaining to this.
This is a very different section from what you have written on the rest of them.
And has this section been updated in the current zoning code update?
No, it's not in there. And, well, it was an oversight by our consultant team, and so that's one of the reasons why this is a little late in the game here. But we've got time to get comments on this. We've got time for the CAG to weigh in. It'd be helpful if you're saying you're reviewing it, so that I can show that I've got folks who are looking at it, and that we would like to report that back to City Council. You also know who your elected officials are. Feel free, that's out of my control, to talk to them.
So if there are active applications over here, they're going by this stuff.
Yes.
Another question, and please don't cut me off because it's about fracking. The deal is that somebody can go in there and start pumping deep water or fracking wastewater deep into the ground and create earthquakes. And we've already had our pictures moved in our house without us touching it. And it wasn't because of trucks. And is there any kind of statement as to how close fracking can be close to Lowry landfill, especially since there may be a fault that goes right through it, but we haven't defined it yet? It's very likely that it is. And if you've got an earthquake and you've got a fault, you can make that fault slip, and then that can cause release of toxins into our groundwater.
And I will just say that oil and gas is under the state purview, and we can control the landscaping around the oil and gas patch. We can follow the setbacks, and that's what's in our control. So if there's an issue, I'd say continue the conversation with EPA, CDPHE through this venue.
So Lee, does that have to be CDPHE we talk to
Or COGCC.
and ask, is there something?
I'm sorry, I
to do?
wasn't paying attention.
That's my fault. I was chatting.
I'll say it again. If you have if you have fracking waste injected deep into the ground, it's already been proven in northern Colorado and plenty of other places that it can cause an earthquake. We have a fault that may be going through the landfill. We don't know yet. It hasn't been completely defined. If it is, and you have injection of deep water and it causes an earthquake, then it's a problem. So is CDPHE, State of Colorado, Arapahoe County, how do we address that to make sure that it doesn't happen?
And the question first was to Karen about cities land use, and she was explaining about.
I understand, but when it comes to oil and gas, it is the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission. That's unfortunately, or fortunately, the long and short of it. It is not the state health department. Because this question has come up, Lee, can you, and I bring that question to my management and they say Oil and Gas Commission. And the answer is no, Lee, you cannot give a presentation on fracking.
You know, it's possible that someone from COGCC, I mean, they have community liaisons, right? And that someone from COGCC could be invited to either to talk to the CAG, or that you all as CAG community members could get an audience. I know that a lot of communities, local communities, because the cities are saying our hands are tied, we keep getting sued if we try to do anything. And so the state, people are appealing to the state and going to state hearings and.
We have one assigned to Aurora,
So that liaison.
I'm sure they're not
And
biased.
I'll leave that up to you to make that request, that we follow the
They're
state
not gonna tell
regulations.
Can, is that the state liaison?
I can get it for you. And do you go to the oil and gas?
When I
You're right, I have.
I don't
Okay,
always
yeah,
hear
right.
about them.
So, do you all want Karen to follow up with you with the name of the local liaison?
I can provide it, and you guys can do it.
Okay, we'll put it in.
Is this a person with oil and gas that's gonna come?
No, this is, yeah. go ahead.
It's a government liaison, and they understand all sides of the issue, and they're usually pretty good. The
So
last
they
one we
wouldn't be overly biased.
had- Well, they can explain things and they can take back things.
I've seen a range.
Yeah,
I've seen a range.
they've been great partners for us in just understanding what we can and can't do, so.
Molly,
I'm way far behind. Would you please point to section 6?
Then here, right, guys? One of these? It's the-
Move your finger to the left,
Right there.
to the left, there you go.
That's
I know there's one on the.
And technically, Lowry landfill is just the western
The mile.
3/4 of section 6. This says section 6 on this document, but it's literally the western 3/4 of section 6.
Did you want to present some comments in writing?
No, no.
I'll take them.
Just trying to be
I'll take them,
clear.
Mr. Pavonka.
Thanks, but no.
So
Mark, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm not trying to start a discussion that we've already said we're going to table, but the question comes to my mind that says, the steering committee, did they talk about putting all this residential development here?
And of course, I wasn't with the city then.
No, the function of the steering committee really hasn't been that, but we've talked about, we understand this document's there. We know that there's the landfill proxy for those properties to the north. We understand all the controls that are associated with Lowry landfill, and we help the city and the counties understand how that affects their planning. That is the conversation that usually goes around. It's two-way, and everybody kind of discusses these problems and how, the new development can affect not only the Superfund site, but Waste Management's facility in general because of the amount of acreage that there's there and vice versa. So it's really open discussion of all these kind of land use issues. So the EPA and the state kind of understand the decisions that they make, how it might affect, in this situation, what's being planned to be built kind of downstream, what the plans are for development to the north. And it's about the agencies, the EPA and the state kind of talking about those understandings to assist in the decision-making for not only the working settling defendants and the EPA, but for the cities and the counties to try to understand all of this that's out there.
You can weigh in on this. Don't, steering committee.
It's not, it's a different thing.
You have power and you have a voice on this, don't you?
Is there any resources that allow us to understand how far away deep water injection can be done safely, what volume it should be, what depth it should be? Is it, because, if we're gonna even follow this, we have to have an understanding of what we're asking for.
You're looking at me and I'm just gonna say
I don't know
oil and
if there are
gas
any
commission
resources
again,
that-
so.
I mean, would EPA even wanna investigate as to why, or whether
In
that's-
Colorado, you may have a federal resource to throw out, but I think it's the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission. I apologize for being redundant, but that's
Can
the
I
answer.
offer just one piece?
Yeah.
On Tuesday morning, the Arapahoe County Commissioners instituted a moratorium on commercial injection wells in Arapahoe County, unincorporated Arapahoe County.
Class 2 injection.
Class 2 injection wells. So you were saying a couple things. You were saying fracking and you were saying injection wells.
Yeah.
Fracking is to reach the oil and gas and bring it up. These are injection wells are injecting for disposal, the leftover.
EMP waste.
Exactly. And we had one application submitted prior to us issuing the moratorium. I don't believe it's in this area. They won't tell me because I have a quasi judicial role. I can't know anything other than what's presented to me at a public hearing, like a judge. Why they say quasi judicial role. So I don't know. I believe it was further east, a lot further east of here. But we realized we did not have the information we needed. Seismic activity is one of those things, although I'm being told that in other jurisdictions, the seismic activity has been satisfied to a certain, based on operations. But we also are concerned about water. We're concerned about the impact to our roads. And we're also concerned about any agricultural impacts, things like that. So health, safety impacts. So we put a temporary 6-month maximum moratorium on injection wells and are in the process of trying to find out what we can from Weld County, from Adams County, from Texas and Oklahoma, where most of the earthquakes happen, to try and have that information. And I can try to share any meetings where we're gonna be receiving that information with this group. So if you're interested, we're in the same process of trying to find out what impacts injection wells will have.
And I'm sorry, I have to address Marty's concern.
Yeah.
Land use, on the land use side, the steering committee, I don't know what they do, but the land use authority lies with the city of Aurora. And so I'm just saying that that is under our purview, so I just want to be very clear.
Well, and we will be coming back to the question of, in terms of the steering committee, the extent to which, you know, if people feel like they want to, like you want to address developers who are considering, and I don't know if that's where your question is going, then, anyway, and also through here. So in any case, we'll come back to that so we can piece out all the different questions and interests.
I'm always available.
Okay, Marky, you have
Yeah,
another.
two comments.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you, Commissioner Baker. I did not realize that there was a moratorium. and that's-
There's not a lot of publicity. I sent out some press releases.
That's very forward thinking of around.
Can we get that sent out to the county press release?
And sure.
Would you send it to me to?
Sure, I would like it.
Okay.
Sure.
We'll put it- Yeah.
And my second comment is, and I'm not looking for an answer to this, I just want to throw it out there. I mentioned it at your last town hall, and that is, all of the municipalities say their hands are tied with oil and gas. If you all would just get together, you could do something at the state level. And I'm hearing you say you talk to Yell County and different places like that.
In the process.
By all means, talk to Lafayette.
Mhm.
And if people could all get together, they could really do something, but for whatever reason, jurisdictions aren't working.
Okay, I have, Commissioner Baker, could you please also give us some idea on what can happen? It's good that Arapahoe County's put the moratorium on, but I also understand that there are private landowners that can allow deep well injection on their properties. Is there any way that people can know? Because I don't think they have to come to the county for that approval.
There are 4 non-commercial injection wells in Arapahoe County. What that means is, when you mentioned class 2 commercial injection wells. In other words, we're setting up a business. Hey, oil and gas folks, bring us your waste and we'll inject it into the ground for you. That's what a commercial site is. The other 4 that are there, depending, those are old oil wells that are no longer being sucked. And now they're being used to dispose of these materials down those. So those are, we know where they are because I believe the oil and gas operators are required to notify us when they're doing that. And the amounts, I'm not sure. That's the other thing. So those are not commercial. Those are being used by Anadarko, ConocoPhillips, Bison, now Extraction.
So would we know in our area if some private commercial entity was allowing deep well injection in our area?
We know where they are, and I'll try to get those and send them out as well.
That'd be great.
Okay.
You know where the either permits
Existing-
or just sites?
Yes,
Do they have to get permits?
I am not sure.
Okay. Okay, so that will be shared with CAG. Do you all want though, in addition to this, to contact one thing? Anyway, consider contacting the local liaison, if that's somebody that people, I don't know if that's something that is appropriate for a CAG meeting, but it sure seems like something that folks have an interest in pursuing because there's a lot of local concerns about it.
Does it wait until after we have this 3-dimensional evaluation to know if any of what we're talking about right now has any effect on? So do we wait for that part first, or what you addressed, Rebecca, about doing that?
I was thinking about that earlier, and I think it's all complementary, right? I think we need all the pieces of information, and until we can put all the different pieces together, we won't really have a comprehensive understanding. So we'll continue to do our piece in terms of the visualization, in terms of the vertical plume delineation. But the other pieces of information that are gathered at the same time will be useful to help fill in that whole picture.
I think it would be good too, Karen, if there was some way that we could get kept up with bison oil again, once to drill across.
Right, even if it's COGCC issues a permit, it won't show up on our development site until we've received the permit, and they have to be approved at the state first.
Okay.
And then one thing I didn't mention is that in Aurora, there is 1,000-foot buffer between a landfill, it's just any landfill, and residential. So that was probably the commercial. And I don't know if that's a state requirement or not, but it's been on the books for a long time.
Okay. Wait a minute, you said landfill and residential?
Any landfill, it's 1,000 foot, and that at Murphy Creek, and of course there's the Highway 30 landfill, they put in residential right at 1,000 feet from that landfill, so that's why I'm happy to be familiar with it, so, not because of this one.
Okay, well, some definite follow-up is people are gonna write Karen with responses. If not by tomorrow at 3, at least the fact that you're researching and looking into it, and that you will be, Commissioner Baker's gonna follow up with the press release and the private instructional locations. And Karen, it sounds like you're gonna get folks the local liaisons information.
Right, and I'm also gonna look at the proposed development to see what product types. I was thinking it was carriage homes, I don't know if they have basements, but it gets to your infrastructure depth issue, so I'll look at that as well.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just, before we adjourn here, curious how people want to follow up. We certainly heard from Rebecca at the beginning of the meeting about wanting to come back to the CAG with more extensive.
Yes.
I know, yeah, we only have a few minutes left, thank you. With a sense of the schedule, with questions for the CAG about priority areas where you want to engage particularly early, as opposed to other areas where you might just want to see a final draft for 2 weeks and just not really see it. What other topics do people want to, well, I'll just ask you, what are the topics from tonight or otherwise that do you want to follow up on at the July or August meeting?
What do you have so far?
Well, so I have the schedule, how the CAG is engaged. There'll certainly be more updates from EPA. I have report backs. There'll be some report backs from the city and county in between, and you all may want to have some discussion about them. Fracking, you all may decide it's timely. You may decide that you want someone to come to the CAG to address some of the things that were raised tonight.
Steering committee, did you have that down?
Steering committee, I have down, thank you. Yes, it's right here. And just talking about some of the questions and concerns, and if there's ways to just create more of a sense of transparency, comfort, whatever it is, to know that they're symbiotic or at least integrated somehow. What else? I mean, that's certainly enough for July, I think. Do people feel like that's what you'd want to see in July? Yeah.
I'd like to have at least a 30-minute where we can have discussions like we were just having here, which are off the record and open and free, and so people don't have to feel like they're going to be blindsided or feel like that they're that they can't discuss something that is a problem that they don't have a solution for yet, and it's not getting out to the community, so it's going to come back to them and say, well, you said that at this meeting. I'd like at least 30 minutes at the end of the meeting.
And do you want it to be focused on any particular topics or really just free-ranging for whatever people are concerned about?
Well, I'd like to focus on whatever we're talking about there, and then we can go from there and open it up.
Great.
So I have one question. I was wondering if Arapahoe County has any land around the Superfund site that you have concerns about, or is it all taken up by the city of Aurora now? Is it all annexed, or the city of Denver?
We have, of course, the fairgrounds.
Yes.
Regional park to the north.
To the north is all city of
It's
Aurora.
all city.
And a quarter mile east, west, and south is all unincorporated Arapahoe County. I'm not sure who the landowners are, that shows up before.
There's a buffer, right?
I just know it's not incorporated.
Do folks want to hear more from the county about that land? I mean, is there a follow-up with the county that folks want to see?
Well, there isn't, I think that there's not as much concern about the counties because they're not building new homes there. And ocean is going to the north, so I think we all have a realistic outlook on that. However, I have to say that we were very disappointed when the new Arapahoe County Comprehensive Plan came out and there wasn't more information, history of the Lowry landfill and the sludge field sections 4 and 9 are still very worrisome to us. And we know that's city of Aurora now, but it's open space and we're saying that people are going to be recreating in those areas. And knowing the sludge fields are really very polluted,
Are you talking about Pronghorn, the city of Aurora?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
we do have someone from our Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department who is looking at, all they can get are invasive weeds out there because of
I
those
know.
sludge fields.
Yes.
I can, at your request, have her come in and talk to you about what they're doing with that area, how they're managing it, so just let me know.
Okay, that might be something we might want to talk about at some point because the sludge fields are kind of out of sight and out of mind for most people, but they're not
Okay,
safe.
I'll report it as a possible future meeting topic.
Okay.
So I want to let folks go because it's 8, but before we do, there's 2 comments, and I also want to ask about July meeting. I think the slated date is July 19th, and I know there's a couple from Rebecca, Jennifer not available. And so I was gonna see, because I think you're gonna be kind of instrumental in reporting back some things with Les, if we could move the week later and have it the 4th. Thursday, the 4th Thursday in July, especially because one of those weeks is July 4th. So that, I think, would be July 19th, 26th. So I was gonna vote that and see if that would be acceptable, so we can have PPA before we look at that. Any sense, anyone have any immediate problems with that?
That's the first night of the Arapahoe County Fair.
First night of the Arapahoe County Fair, is that good?
That means traffic could be atrocious.
Atrocious, but out here.
We
Yes.
could sleepover CAG.
All
And let it cross the
right,
line.
so I think the question is traffic on Gun Club, sort of, full representation from EPA.
Well, where would we have the meeting?
Yeah, that might
Could
be
you do it in Murphy Creek?
Maybe, or the library, or the city building.
City, so where are the suggestions, and Jennifer, this may be close to you, but so it's still the city building, library, or what was the other suggestion, Murphy Creek?
Murphy Creek, I can see if I can use
You've got a nice facility in Murphy Creek.
Okay, so Jennifer, I'll report that, there's possibilities, but Murphy Creek Community Center, library, or city building was a 3 proposed, and that would avoid some traffic, is that the point?
Yeah, city and library.
Okay, cool.
So in the library, okay, yeah, I think it looks up pretty far advanced, so no idea.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know that I did a conference room unless it's
At the library.
out, yeah.
Okay, well, we can shoot for it, we can try. Okay, why don't people mark their just pencil their calendars, and you guys had 2 quick comments before we mark.
I was wondering if the next meeting would be too soon to get some follow-up from Aurora on this thing.
If you can get me something tomorrow, we have a council policy committee meeting, and I am preparing my agenda back up for that right now, as I would put it in.
PED?
PED.
Okay.
Are we calling that follow up on the land use?
Yes, the Lowry landfill land use regulations.
Okay, thank you. Richard, you had something to say?
Yeah, I was going to suggest, there's a lot of questions about oil and gas and what the county and city can do. And I think if we're really interested, we ought to have Diane Kokas. I can't say her last name.
Diane Kosis.
Kosis. She's with the Arapahoe County Oil and Gas Specialist. I think she could come in and explain to us exactly what the deal is. What's the deal with the oil and gas group? What power they have? What can the county do? What the county can't do? And that would still go for any other county or any city. I think that might be interesting. If it's interesting to us, maybe we could do that.
We also have several planners assigned to oil and gas applications, so let me know if you want us to be part of that.
So one question I have is, so do people, I mean, I assume people want at least like probably an hour for if there's gonna be city and county folks there too. I mean, obviously these things there's a lot of information. So do you want to devote that portion of a CAG meeting to that in July? I mean, there's a lot of other things that people want on the calendar. Do you want to, I mean, my guess is you as citizens could get separate meetings with them too.
Do we know yet what EPA's and the state's schedule is as far as work plans and things that may be released or discussed? And how that will be impacting our July meeting?
Well, that's what we want to talk about during July is that schedule.
Okay.
So there's nothing right now except the water treatment plant that's really a work plan.
Just these updates that Les gave, right?
Okay,
Landfill gas, et cetera, so
okay.
progress
So-
is being made, but as far as hard
But it won't
dates.
be something that will have subjects that we can discuss,
Substantively get into.
do you think?
It's hard to say. It just depends on how fast things go along once we all come to consensus on what that final work plan is gonna look like.
So there may be, it sounds like in there, maybe.
We're trying.
Substantively, yeah,
I'm
The landfill gas is
thinking that
close.
it's
Yes.
interesting, Les's update about landfill gases and the above ground issues. I think that's interesting. I think it's something we need to know more about.
So to hear more about that.
And if that's going to be something that we can talk about at the next meeting, I think we definitely need to discuss that. Above ground is very important to all of us that live around the site.
So why don't I'll put these out in draft form and you all decide in terms of the fracking oil and gas question. I mean, it seems to me that could be a CAG meeting. It could also be a citizens, you could have a separate meeting with the
Yeah.
liaison, right? And with the city or county, and that's something that you all can request and they will grant you.
Yes.
But I think it's how much you want to integrate it, right? So,
Separate meeting.
okay, why don't you just keep us posted. Okay, are we good? What are we missing? We adjourn now that it's dark and we're operating in quasi darkness. Thanks, everyone. See you on the 26th.